What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Movie Emporium Flashback review. We're back today. Triv once again joins me. They talked Mission Impossible movies on the road to the Dead Reckoning. Today, we have to reckon with a certain sequel to the franchise that I don't even know how to explain because it is a movie that is quite something to talk about. And after the first movie, Triv, did you expect to watch a movie that would be as complete opposite of the original movie as what we're getting into today?
It certainly if you had gone into from watching 1 to 2 for the first time, uh you might have walked out of the theater thinking that you were watching the wrong one. But like you were saying in chat earlier, if this doesn't like sum up like the year 2000, I'm not sure what does. And also maybe discussing this movie may not be it's not mission incredibly difficult, it's mission impossible.
Yeah,
And
right,
I
right.
totally screwed up that line, but you know.
No, it's fine. I mean, this movie deserves to be screwed up when it talked about. It's just
Well, there
we're
was
talking about
screwing
Mission.
going on. There's no doubt.
I know, right? We of course are talking about Mission Impossible 2, the sequel to the successful first film. This is a film that came out during Memorial Day weekend. I actually remember. I don't know if you remember when this film came out, but I was.
I don't remember your experience, but I remember my own.
Well, no, I was gonna.
You
That's
were a
true.
young lad. You had hair and your beard wasn't all in yet. You were just a young Italian boy looking for the greater or meaning of life, and you found it in Tom Cruise's long hair.
Yeah, we'll go with that. That's perfectly. It had nothing to do with the fact that I saw the reviews for this in the USA Today and was in high school, and I had nothing going for me outside of just excited for a Mission Impossible movie.
You know what? That's not the worst thing in the world.
Sure. Kids,
Hey, you weren't
enjoying
looking
themselves and
forward.
me going to see Mission Impossible.
Well, you weren't, overjoyed by the opportunity to go see Les Mis, and see what crap, I lost his name. The guy that played Jean Valjean, not Jean Valjean, the other guy,
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe. You weren't excited to hear him sing, so that
Hey,
would
you
be
don't know what
weird.
I was
But
doing in my spare time, Trip. You don't know what I was doing in my spare time.
are you saying that you're secretly Russell Crowe?
Yes.
I mean, you got a good beard going, so you just toss
Right?
on the Aussie accent, and we'd be good to go.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, this is a movie I was, comes 4 years after the original movie, and I was really anticipating this movie. I've been waiting for this. There's times in my life where the things I can remember have to do with the release of movies, whether it be Mission Impossible 2 or Revenge of the Sith, or I don't know, Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse or Across the
Oh yeah.
Spider-Verse or whatever. It's a pretty sad life, to be honest,
Oh,
but
would you
it's
shut up? That's a lot of people
I
that
mean I
we tried.
mean
Oh, would you just shut your face, you silly dork? First off, for modern day
yes.
stuff, you review movies on YouTube for a side gig. So yeah, of
Yeah.
course you're going to be excited about movies. You're going to know the ins and outs. Your family was freaking born in this field, so yes, again, you would be
I mean,
very
I hope they
excited
weren't
about
born
movies.
in this field. I hope they were
Oh,
born in like a
Jesus
hospital
God.
or something like that.
No, they were born in the back alley of a theater. They found bat
I mean,
pussy
it's probably
back
true.
there.
Oh man. So anyways, Mission Impossible 2 was I get why they hired John Woo to direct this movie. John Woo is he at this point he's a well-known Chinese filmmaker. He's done like stuff like he did Hard Target, he did that famous one where it has the long one shot in the police station. I'm forgetting, this is really bad because if anybody's watching this, they're like, you're an idiot.
You want me to look it
Hard
up quick?
Boiled.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's hard, but yeah, he did Hard Boiled. He did the Killer. He's one of the most famous action directors of his time, coming out of his country. And in 2000, he had already done stuff like Face Off, and he had done stuff like Broken Arrow. So I get why they had him do this movie, because it's the style of the time. He is a director who's his style and substance is very relatable to a lot of people from around the world. So they wanted to reach an open market of all that stuff. The problem though is the simple fact of like, how is this movie going to handle the time, like time when it came to, 23 years in the future, us talking about now, and how is it going to
Oh, dude,
be.
they don't think about that kind of. I mean, if a movie is
Well,
made
no, I
now,
know, but
they're
my
not gonna.
point is like, when you look at a movie that came out 2000, that's very 2000s, it makes you wonder like, why they would pick this particular type of film. And I don't know, it's just like, it's a very weird film. It almost ruined the franchise actually, which is kind of funny if you think about it,
I could see that.
because but yeah, I mean, John Woo seems like the perfect fit for a Mission Impossible movie in the year 2000. I mean, of course, it was filmed in 1999 or whatever, and it shows. It has the hallmarks of anything that John Woo does: the double guns, the motorcycles, the flying birds,
Explosions.
explosions, the fast-paced editing, the hot attractive woman, which, I mean, yeah, there's hot attractive women in apparently the Triv loves hot attractive women. Apparently there's it just everything. If you look at any of his movies, especially movies of that time, they're very violent. They're super stylized, and they feel that they're constantly in motion. And I don't think this film is as bad as I remember it, but I think it's of its time. You can watch Mission Impossible outside of the technology, and you can watch Mission Impossible 3 and so on and so forth. And those seem more timely than this movie ever does. And we'll talk about why, but as we go along in the series, it just makes me appreciate the fact of what this series has become and what it's been able to do, and how much it's been able to reinvent itself. And that restarts with number 3. But I mean, before we get into like the nature of this film, I mean, what do you think about this film overall, as just an overall film, not just the kind of nuts and bolts? Like, what did you think? How is it, as somebody who loves campy stuff, and I'm not, well,
No, I
but I
get
mean,
you.
you know
I
what I
get
mean?
you.
Like,
Yeah, no, I
you love the
understand.
really campy stuff. Could be seen as a campy movie in a lot of respects.
Oh,
Like,
definitely.
from your point of view, yeah, from your point of view, how do you feel about this film in general?
Well, first one thought on like John Woo as a director. I think to some extent, like you look at like the Mummy from 2017, and it's a Tom Cruise production, in association with other people, but he had his hands in deep on this one. It was one of the first movies that he produced as well as starred in, and he had
Yeah.
like he locked John Woo out of the editing suite. He took risks that John Woo didn't really want to do as far as stunts went. There was a lot of like, I think what happened was you had John Woo. If he would have been able to direct it, it probably would have come out maybe a little bit smoother. But because Tom Cruise had
Yeah.
his fingers in everything, I think that affects it.
Well, that's the thing I'm thinking about is Tom Cruise as an individual. He has gotten to a point in his career where he only works with certain people because he feels like they're the ones that are going to best like
Yeah.
accentuate who he is. But back in the day, he was cocky as hell. He was just getting into Scientology, and this is an individual I don't feel appreciated John Woo for who he is. I'm not saying John Woo wasn't like the most to blame on this. I'm
Oh
just
no,
saying like
no.
there is something about this movie that feels completely off compared to the first movie. And then eventually when he started to come into his own in this franchise, and he allowed JJ Abrams to work on it, and they worked well and stuff like that. And here it just feels like such a weird misstep of just like creative ideas. And I don't know,
They
I'm
tossed
sorry.
literally no, it's okay. No, it felt like they tossed everything at the wall. Like I remember
I think they
watching.
may have.
Oh no, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, you've
Yeah.
got the but from the outside looking back, especially, like I remember seeing this in the theater too, because the first
Hmm.
Mission Impossible movie was so good. And
Yeah.
actually, like that was kind of that age, like those kind of adventure movie or action movies, especially over Memorial Day. You didn't leave the theater because it's like that was the weekend to go see movies.
Yep.
But I remember walking out and just being like, this Tom Cruise and Tom Cruise from the first one are like night and day. If you took away like indicators of like stars that appeared in both and just had them be nameless movies, you would not say that they were connected. I mean, the style of shooting, the way that it moves, the complicated narrative of the first one versus the very, very not complicated narrative of the second one. I mean, stunts alone in this. It was the first one was subtle and James Bond, like classic James Bond. And this was just bombastic, like crazy, I don't know, like James Bond ripoff where, we had like a Monster Energy and, took like 6, lines of coke and was like, let's fuck this shit up.
I mean, we were what movie we were talking about? We were talking about when I was talking to Jake about Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think that's posted before this or after this. Anyways, it'll be one of the videos that we do. Mm-hmm. We talked about how, man, they were on some kind of cocaine crab or something like that when they made that movie.
For Temple of Doom?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Temple of Doom. Oh, okay. Temple of Doom. And here it feels like they took a shot of adrenaline. What's great about this movie is when you watch commercials of the 2000s, like literally the early 2000s, or you watch any movie that comes out, there is a style about it, the way people dress, the fact that these people have the kind of hairstyle that Tom Cruise has in this movie. It feels so of its time that it almost makes you laugh when you watch it. And it's just when you're watching just the music that's playing, the fact that Hans Zimmer did the score for this movie, but Limp Bizkit did like the theme song for this movie.
Really?
And yeah, and it's just like, and you can like, if you watch the Limp Bizkit or listen to the Limp Bizkit song, or you watch the Metallica music video, mm-hmm. like there's something about 2000 where they can't stay still, and they're in their shot.
Always kind of.
They're moving constantly. Like it is crazy because there's one of the special features that is on this on the iTunes thing that I have is the music video for Metallica, and it's constantly like doing transition. So it'll be like one of the guitarists, whoever the guitarist is, he'll be running from a plane. They'll transition back to him on the side of a mountain. Then Jason Newsted is on there, and he's running around like he's like in Primus video or something. Not Primus, but what's that British band that did Slap My Bitch Up? Prodigy. The Prodigy. Yeah, he looks like he's in a Prodigy video, and there's he's on the side of the mountain. It's just like that's what the 2000s did, and that's what they you watch something like Gone 60 Seconds, and that's what these movies were. That's what they were on the precipice of, like movies of the 90s where it was like the new age of digital technology and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to the 2000s, like I was talking about with just the Metallica video, it has a certain style to it that people who watch Dead Reckoning, who are young kids, they'll watch Mission Impossible 2 and they go, I don't understand why this movie is the way it is. You and I will go back and watch something from the 40s, 50s, and 60s and like that, and it'll be completely different the way it's edited and shot. It has a way of feeling and not really antiquated, but really makes you feel old, just the way things were in the 2000s. And eventually we got out of it. Well, but the funny thing about this is, and I think it was this portion of the 2000s, literally this movie came out in May of 2000, so it was like right at the turn of the the Y2K and the early computers. And if you look at Luther Stickles' computers in this movie, and they're like big bricky computers, and they're like bulky in a lot of respects. And you go to something like Mission Impossible 3, which came out in 2005, and it like the computers are completely different. Everything, it feels a little more modern. It doesn't feel as dated as this movie does, and it's unfortunately just John Woo's style at the time that caused this movie to look the way it does. And then on top of everything, you can interject at any point if you want, Trip, but okay. on top of everything, this is a movie that was written by Robert Towne again. I think this is the last movie in the franchise to write, but it's story by, which is the people who came up with the story, by Ronald D. Moore, who of course was the creator of the updated Battlestar Galactica. And Yeah. So that's interesting. And Brandon
Very.
Braga, who is a who actually got Emmy nominated for working on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh yeah. Okay, I
And
thought the name sounded familiar. I couldn't figure out from
yeah,
where.
he's pretty famous. He's done a lot of stuff since, but he's known for working on, Star Trek, and a lot of that, working on 24, just working on all these famous shows. But he actually he got Emmy nominated for the fourth season of Next Generation, which was probably a very good season.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But yeah, that's what I hear. Unfortunately, I wasn't a big fan of Star Trek at the
How
time,
dare
but
you?
right, yeah. Shame on me. Shame.
Shame, shame, shame.
Yeah, but it's a very in your face, very bombastic movie. And once again, I was really excited to see this movie because I love the first movie so much. And it was at the time where I saw everything in the theater. I mean, I still see a lot of stuff in the theater, but at the time, it's like the only way you really find reviews were reading the newspaper, or
Yeah. There's
watching
time and
Roger,
place.
yeah, Roger, where watching Ebert and Siskel and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
it's also the time where you would go on the phone and listen
Oh
for
yeah.
showtimes instead of going online. And
Welcome to welcome to Booty Phone.
right. But it's a movie just of its time. But the thing
I agree
that
with you, but I think
yeah,
too, like from the perspective, yeah, you can look, and I apologize because I'm pulling facts or pulling a little bit back on this. Like I'm a huge fan of kind of movies from across the board. Like the further back you go, the more I enjoy it. I think yes, it is very dated to the early 2000s, but I think too, like I think you can pull just as much from the like just the bombastic, explosive nature of that time, as much as you can look at it and go, look at that computer, it's so silly. The one thing I will
right.
say, what was with Tom Cruise? He was obsessed with khakis in this movie. I don't think he wore. Why would he not wear black pants? I guess he was most of the time outside during the day, but like no black pants. Everything was khakis.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised I didn't see some painter jeans in this. Where were the painter
Eh.
jeans at, Trev? Why didn't he have any
Well,
painter jeans? And why didn't he
that's
have like
more
skater
late.
jeans and stuff?
That's more like 2002 that came in. So
So at the time it was just too early. I see.
absolutely.
Um but no, my major problem with this movie and why I kind of just don't like it, and I watched it today, is it's very boring. I'm gonna be fairly honest. For a movie that's as action oriented as this, the major plot and the major kind of near the end of this movie are some of the most dull things I've ever seen in an action movie. And I'm not faulting John Woo for it, because this is John Woo through and through. I just think
John Woo
that,
through and through. That sounds like
oh
his
my god,
biography.
you're doing the jokes. No,
I
but like
am.
seriously though, like the after the point in this movie where he goes to that whatever island in Australia, what portion of whatever Australia they're in, it just
Sydney?
drags. No. I know it's Sydney, but most of it takes place in Sydney. I'm talking about when they
Oh,
go
the
to
sheep
the
ranch?
bunker, yeah, the bunker or
Yeah.
whatever they're in, and it just like I felt that I felt that they were kind of didn't know what they wanted, and like they didn't really know how to end this, because if you look at Mission Impossible 3, you look at Mission Impossible, you look at the other two movies, I think the action sequences are well thought out, well shot. I think they're well put together, but I don't think this movie really delivers. It just has some motorcycle sequences. And I mean, we'll kind of talk about it later on, but it's just like I feel like we're at a dirt rally show where we're watching this movie at the end, and it just
It
I
does
don't
it
know.
feels like it gave you like three climaxes and not really the fun kind. I
Uh,
mean, you had the whole like
yeah.
where they went in to get the chimera stuff, and then
Mm,
everything kind of exploded, and things happened there, and that's supposed
I
to give
mean,
us it's supposed to give us like the stakes that are like, well, we
yeah.
have to do this thing or things are going to happen. And then there's well, we got rid of this. Oh, but now we have to
Well,
have the motorcycle thing. And then there's the last
yeah.
thing. It
It
kind of
feels like
just,
you're. It feels like you're having sex for the first time, and the end is just like, oh, that was not as exciting as I thought it was going to be.
I was going to
you
say it's
know,
like Lord of the Rings. It ends like four times.
Well, oh yeah, yeah, I guess that's true. It's also funny that like this movie comes out in the time frame of like Lord of the Rings, and
Well,
I don't
Lord of the
know.
Rings would have come out in 2001, so it's a year ahead of that.
Well, no. I'm just saying, like the what's weird about this time frame is this movie feels dated for what it's worth. But you get movies of this time, The Matrix. You get movies like Lord of the Rings. You get movies of like of like the technology aspect when it comes to like The Matrix and stuff like that. And then you get this movie, and it doesn't feel like a Mission Impossible movie. It's just on the nature of like how bombastic it truly is when it comes
But
to its.
wouldn't you say though that John Woo wasn't really a guy? And special effects were nothing new at that point, but they were certainly like
Yeah,
if you're talking computer-based effects, like The Matrix kind of reset the bar for a lot of that stuff. It
yeah,
kind of took it from those blocky kind of 90s things up into very realistic. Like the plane at the open was very clearly like CGI. And then him
right.
climbing up the mountain at the beginning, they had like a support rope that they erased from that. But given John Woo, given his past, he's probably not the kind to incorporate a lot of CGI. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not saying like that's a problem. I'm just saying like it's very weird. This film is just very weird in the time frame of movies that were coming out because it just shows its age, and there are movies in 2000, nothing I can think of offhand that don't show their age as much as this movie does, and it's the problem of just the director and how he viewed the things in the world at the time, and I don't know. To me it's I want to like this movie, and it's just very difficult for me to like
Yeah,
this movie. And
that's fair.
what makes it so funny though, and the biggest thing about this movie is the bad guy is played by
Dougray Scott.
Dougray Scott, who was an individual who was an up and coming actor at the time. He had done a few things from his country, but he's most notable for being the actor who was originally cast to play Wolverine in the X-Men movies, which of course, Hugh Jackman eventually took the role. But Dougray Scott was supposed to be as the role of Wolverine, and he decided to take the role in Mission Impossible 2 because, X-Men 2 at the time, or X-Men at the time, was not a property that was going to nobody knew if it was going to make money or not, so he went for the
Right.
safer choice. And it actually, what's weird about it is Dougray Scott is not a terrible actor. He's a good actor, but this completely ruined his career. Like,
I could see it.
no joke. I feel so bad for the guy because he had a chance to have superstardom. It's like, think of all the actors or actresses who had a chance to be in, like, for instance, Matt Damon was supposed to be, I think it was in like a Michael Bay movie or something like that, and he didn't do it because he was committed to something else that was not as well received. It's the same thing here, like that it's like you had that fork in the road, and you take the road, and you take the road less traveled or whatever, and you understand why you would want to do something like this. But as we know, Hugh Jackman became a superstar after X-Men, and his kind of trajectory. Dougray Scott kind of became really nothing much after this film. I mean, not saying he's still not in stuff, but he's not, dancing on stage or, playing what Jean Valjean or whatever, and Les Mis
Yeah.
and getting an Oscar nomination. And but he's like a serviceable villain, but he's not special. He's not, John Voight or Philip Seymour Hoffman, or the guy that was in the latest Mission Impossible movies. He's just kind of a
Sam.
nothing.
No, that was Bond. I was thinking Rami Malek, but he was in
No,
Bond, not
I
this.
don't want to talk about that. Talk about Rami Malek in that film.
No,
There's yeah, go ahead. I'm good.
I was just gonna say, kind of overall, as far as like the villain went and everything else, this felt very, there's that goofy popcorn movie. Like the first one, like original Mission Impossible was very much like it. You remember it, and I remember stuff from this movie too. Like there are certain action scenes that that do stick with you because of like their epic nature or their goofy nature. But overall, this just felt like then and now. Feels like,
Yeah.
you know what? It's a popcorn movie. It's kind of looking back, it's kind of Michael Bay-esque in the way that it approaches things. It's not one I need to go back and watch again, but I'm glad I watched it, for this. So.
Well, no, and I'm not saying that it's like the most offensive thing you've ever seen.
I know. I'm just saying it's not deep, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think there are people out there that will defend this movie just on the simple fact of it definitely feels like a John Woo movie, but what we've seen in the future, in the course of the past, this doesn't feel like to me like Ethan Hunt, to be fairly honest. It feels like a what if Ethan Hunt were playing a video game of himself in like a Grand Theft Auto or something like that. And that's what it feels like, because he's doing stuff in this movie that almost like is laughable. The kicks, like I know you probably saw it too, where he does that like flip drop kick on a person where he
Yeah.
flips himself like he's suspended like in a martial arts film, and his leg comes down on the guy.
Yeah.
And then he does like, you know, a jump in the air and the motorcycles and stuff like that. And that's very much like a very much of a Chinese stunt work and stuff like that when it comes to Chinese films, because they were known for doing like over the top action sequences. And you see it with like Jackie Chan and stuff like that. Just like how everything feels like very stylized in this like action stuff. But I don't think it fits a Mission Impossible movie. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying if this were any other movie, I think I would not hate it as much. You know, for instance, Paycheck is worse than this movie, but I like it because it's not a IP that we know,
Right.
but it's
No
bombastic and
expectations of
silly.
it.
And yeah, it's bombastic and silly, and it's a movie that just kind of is its own thing. And here we're basing it off a property of a famous character in a famous franchise. And I just think John Woo was the wrong person for this movie. And you know, I think it shows. You know, I think that's why
maybe for the time and place it was like, and I'm not disagreeing. I don't think like if you wanted a movie that fit like semi cleanly but still had its own identity amongst what we see looking back as Mission Impossible, this definitely doesn't fit that mold. But I don't know. I mean, for the time, I don't know. It like you say, it had that bombastic, crazy shit. You know, motorcycle stunts at the freaking wazoo and shit exploding and hanging out the side of buildings. And I don't know. I read one of the trivia things that said that for each one of these movies, the reason that Cruise wanted a different director was because he wanted each one to be its own episode, you know, kind of a self-contained thing.
Well, I mean, I get that. And I think I'm just saying, I think as it went along, I think he realized that when he's committed to a certain director, the films will be, as long as the film works, I think he realizes that he can have a continuation. Because, you know, you look at any movie, or, you know, like Harry Potter, for instance, the movies that first start out the franchise, the first couple movies or first couple books, they're of a thing of where they're kind of, there's no outside of like in this, like with Ving Rhames, there's no like continuity outside of Ethan Hunt being in part of the IMF and stuff like that. But when you get to 3 and you start introducing like Simon Pegg, and you get to 4, 5, 6, you start introducing to, you know, the IMF and Alec Baldwin and all these characters that start popping up in, you know, multiple movies, and you have a continuation, you're allowing yourself to make the plot work. You're allowing yourself to, you know, add in just enough to have its own movie, but also allow itself to be a singular product. And you could tell in the first movie there was that inkling of like spy thriller, spy drama, whatever Brian De Palma does. And then I get when they go, we want to do something else. This is like when John Carpenter said, you know, part 3 of the Halloween franchise is going to be something different. But I just don't think that this movie by itself, outside of having the 2 characters that run throughout the entire franchise, really works, because you have Anthony Hopkins in this movie who never shows up again. It's like you know, the James Bond franchise, as we talked about, you know, you have Judi Dench, who pops up in Goldeneye, and she continues to run through until she eventually is killed in Skyfall or something like that. And it's the same thing. It's just I that's where my issues lie with this movie. Is I get why they did it, but it feels like there wasn't any continuity in this franchise, so it felt like it was constantly wading in water, and there was a shark just kind of snipping at its, you know, at its kind of creation. And I don't know. That's just how I feel.
No, understood. I think that it makes good sense. It's stupid, and I know it's not even remotely the same thing, but I could not stop thinking about how this movie is quite a lot like Tokyo Drift in terms of like the other early Fast and Furious movies. Like and obviously there's a lot of reasons for that, but it was so out of left field for what everything else was. And
see, that movie's good.
No, I know, but at the time it wasn't thought of to be good. It was thought to be just a pariah. But no, I really I enjoyed it then and now. But I
Right.
couldn't stop thinking about that in terms of, it's very, it's like, or even like Halloween 3, it takes this weird left turn. And, I don't know. Like, it's hard to say when you only had one other Mission Impossible movie. Like, it did set
Mhm.
a tone, but what was the tone going forward, 4 years is
Yeah,
4 years and
yeah.
everything changes. But I don't know. It was an experience. We'll leave it at that. It was fun popcorn. That's kind of
Right.
where it gets left. I kept watching this and it was just like, yeah, you know what? evil flu type thing that is there to kind of take over the world. It's like, well, we don't know anything about that. What?
No, we've never seen that. We weren't out
Oh,
of
come
commission for
on.
2 years. No, never, never.
Oh.
This
And it's
movie's
weird
not.
though, it's like you look at it and go, well, 20 years ago, this was outside the box and interesting, and now it's like we've lived it. Oh
Yeah,
god. Anyway.
it's crazy. No, it's a movie that is very Mission Impossible-y when it comes to the MacGuffin and the idea of the MacGuffin. It's just told very 2000s where this guy is working for, and they did this in I think the last James Bond movie, where this corporation has developed a virus that in essence can destroy the world by transmission and stuff like that. Like I said, I've never seen that happen in our entire history of living on this planet. That would never happen in
Nah.
2020 or anything like that. I don't know what you're talking about, Trev. But he knows Ethan Hunt, and Ethan Hunt's like called Dimitri as his like alias and stuff like that. And he basically says, I've injected myself. I need you to meet me. We need to get this virus away because we think it's going to do bad things. Evil corporation, ha 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 ha, twirling mustache. And as we talked in the last episode, the idea of face mask in a movie is maybe to the 100th degree in a movie. I don't know about you, but they sure do have a lot of was it rubber to
Oh
use for
yeah.
masks. Like, there's no idea how they make these masks. I don't know if Dougray Scott just has a bunch of Ethan Hunt mask in the background and like in his lair or something.
Can you imagine though
Um,
talking to would you trust talking to anybody if that like both the sound tech, like that was kind of a cool upgrade, the fact that they included like the voice box tech, but
yeah,
still you look at it and go, okay. Like you couldn't talk to anybody with masks that convincing, and then you add on the voice thing. I will say I enjoyed what they did with that later in the movie. That was kind of fun.
right. I mean, they use it to an effect in the third movie too, and I think it's one of those things where I think they kind of went a little overboard in like
You mean
you're
an
like,
action movie going overboard? I mean, next you're going to be telling me that having doves fly out of a random room isn't going to be too much.
well, I mean, you remember you got your face off.
Yes.
Yeah. So, anyways, this guy
I can pull my face
is
off anytime I like if you wanted to see that. I
um,
mean,
please don't, please don't.
okay.
But Nukuchev is the guy that injects himself because he's taking the virus. He's doing kind of like 12 monkeys or something like that, and he on a plane, and Ethan Hunt's sitting next to him. Somehow he doesn't recognize his friend. I don't know if he's never seen Ethan Hunt in his life, but he seems to know
No,
Ethan
they
Hunt.
no, they discussed back and forth. They knew each other.
No, no, no. But when he's on the plane right next to Ethan Hunt, it almost seems like he doesn't know him at first, and then he finally knows him. It's just like, if this guy sat next to you and you know it's Ethan Hunt, wouldn't you start talking to him?
Wouldn't it be though something where he was trying to be like low key about it, like kind of making sure, like looking, like how people like look around and then they sit down and like the cock crows at midnight or something like that to double check that it's the right person, or that's kind of what I got from it. But
I mean, I guess so. I don't know. It's very weird, and he calls him Dimitri, and I don't know. This movie starts out very weird. It starts out, here's a guy who has a virus in him. He has canisters or whatever in a bag, and you have the sequence of, we find out that the guy that's Ethan Hunt isn't really Ethan Hunt. We find out they've pretty much filled the cabin with sleeping gas, and they do their killing of Nikuchev and stuff like that. And we
no,
learn
they
it's
take him
Dougray
with him.
Scott's who Nikuchev.
They
No, they
didn't
kill
they?
the Ambrose kills him. Ambrose kills him. Like, he punches him in the neck, in the face or whatever, and then he breaks his neck. And then he removes
then
his mask.
who was the dude later from the poll or from the images on the digital camera? Was that the other
No,
guy?
that's the when they do the voiceover work at the beginning of the movie, that's that recording. Because if you listen to it, it's the same thing he's saying in the beginning of the movie in the voiceover.
Okay. You know, at the racetrack when they steal the SD card, and they're
Yeah.
seeing all the images of the person after like 20 hours, 30 hours, and they're showing the cells breakdown. Wasn't that him?
I don't think so. I don't think it was.
Who was that then?
Because I think they kill. I think he maybe. Well,
I thought that was him. I guess I didn't pay enough attention because his name was across the bottom. I thought, but I just assumed that was him, and I kind of left it at that. But they're at the racetrack. They get.
Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm misreading that because I thought they did.
Okay.
I don't ever remember seeing him because what happens is he hits him in the neck and then he breaks his neck. So maybe I'm misreading it too. I don't know. It felt like he killed him, but
well, if they killed him, they would have had to take him with them too. So.
No, not if they blow up the plane because they,
but they would have had to take him so they have the virus to see the effects of what was going on.
But I think he had like a virus in the satchel or something like that. I don't know. Maybe they injected him. See, this problem with this movie is 2000s. It doesn't have to explain anything. Maybe they just like
that
had
is
a
true.
twin or something like that. There's cloning. There's somewhere in the cloning. There's cloning in the background. I don't know. It's $120 million bombastic John Woo action film.
And it was
Why are you
top
questioning me?
grossing
I
thing
can't
in
handle
2000.
this.
Well, get over it, man. And it was the top grossing movie of 2000 too. Or 2000 as well.
Are you sure? So. I thought The Grinch was. I think The Grinch was.
That's what the trivia said was that was the highest grossing movie of 2000, but maybe not.
You're right. Hey, hold on a second. Let me
look that shit up, man.
2000 box office.
I'm gonna go back and look that up quick while you're looking that up.
In 2000, I got it right here.
Okay.
Number one film. I remember this because I remember how bad I hated this movie. How the Grinch Stole Christmas was 251 million. Mission Impossible 2 was number 2 with 215 million.
Oh, okay.
Then Gladiator, The Perfect Storm, Meet the Parents, X-Men, all that stuff. So it was 2000s was a very interesting year when it came to movies. It wasn't a very good year, to be fairly honest.
That's okay.
I mean, it had X-Men, but that was before we learned of what that guy was. It basically they steal the virus because they're going to blackmail the head of the company. I love that these movies, the main bad guys is blackmailing somebody to make money. Because they need world domination, money. That's as we learned as Ambrose's, who's Dougray Scott's main thrust in this movie is he's just trying to steal money, but he's using it by eventually, as we learned, he's going to inject it into Australia or wherever and cause pandemic, and the company Biocide or whatever it is going to inject people with some chemical that's an antibody, and they make money, and happy go lucky, everybody makes billions of dollars, and everybody else suffers. And I guess, sure, I think as we see, there are much better MacGuffins to throw into a movie than virus. Virus seems like a bland MacGuffin to me personally. Chimera virus, I mean, it's fine. How do you feel about it? Does it tickle your fancy at all?
I had to laugh because like the first, and I think that was a big thing that was kind of like, because biotech was kind of a big thing at that point. Yeah. I mean, and it's still, but like the first one dealt with God, like with the Bible and all the Bible verses and stuff. This dealt with mythology. It's like, oh, okay, well, going back to the classics, not a bad thing. But I will say the fact that they kind of recycled the plot of like, oh, this guy's okay, and then it turns out like, I don't know what Mission Impossible like what their standards are, but they really need to do better job of hiring not shitty people.
Yeah, I would agree. They are really bad at getting themselves into trouble, at creating moles, at it's just they're really bad at doing their job, and it really shows. And thank God they have somebody like Ethan Hunt in his hair to secure a virus from invading the earth. But
you could totally like use his hair, like if you cut off a lock that could take down like 10 guards without breaking a sweat.
right? You can
All
turn that
hail
into an
Ethan.
arrow and strings of
Yeah,
it's like the strings of a god and stuff like that. And
absolutely. He's
um
freaking. His hair is like freaking Samson.
right when they cut that off, it just the powers of Ethan Hunt were multiplied because they gave him like
Oh
injected into his blood and stuff like that.
yeah.
So the plane explodes and we have this like insanely like fast-paced shot of the explosion. Then it goes to whatever mountains they're at in America. I think he's in like Arizona or some crap like that, or Utah.
Yeah, that or Utah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's free soloing. This is the first thing you hear about with John Woo. Is very uncomfortable with a $1 million star, doing his own stunts. And the funny thing about Tom Cruise, as we learn later on, is he's willing to take chances, and the insurance companies don't like that.
Oh, he
When he
lied
flies
about
off
it on
plane,
this one. He ended up doing like
did he?
95% of his own stunts.
But yeah, when you watch, he makes a good point that a lot of times you can see the stunt person if
Mhm.
the shots aren't correctly put together.
Oh yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
there's stuff in this movie that doesn't feel like it's Tom Cruise, that feels like a stunt person, and it's just of that time where it just like when the slow motion shots happen, it's like that really looks not like Tom Cruise, but apparently it may be. I don't know. But you can imagine that if he were to do this stunt today, he probably would have no wires or harnesses or something like that. They probably,
Oh, it'd
you
all be
know,
CGI.
no, none like his stuff is not CGI.
Oh,
Like a
that
lot of
way. If it
this.
was just, sorry, I thought you meant generally. Yeah, if it was him, nah,
Oh
absolutely
yeah,
not.
if it were somebody else, yeah, they'd be like CGI that nonsense. So he's on vacation. He's trying to free solo a cliff, mountain, a hill, or whatever. He's trying to free solo,
Yeah, it's a
and
pretty much directly like it's a pretty steep like no place to grab on if you fall kind of rock face.
yeah, and he decides he's going to just like jump from one side to the other, and hopefully he'll survive. Holding off and stuff like that. And I don't know if you recognize the song, Aiko
I
Aiko.
did, and I can't like I remember at the time going, oh yeah, I know that song. I don't remember what it is in retrospect. It was a really weird choice though.
Okay, no,
Is it
no.
hey now, hey now, hey
Aiko.
now, hey now, I go,
Well,
yeah.
no. Aiko Aiko is a song that is famous for another movie that Tom Cruise was in. And if you watch the opening scene to Rayman, the Aiko Aiko song is playing.
Oh
That's the
yeah.
opening. And so he used the song as kind of an homage to Rain Man,
Nice.
just putting because he liked that song a lot. And they remixed it to make it more, more of the more of the modern time. But this stuff here feels like Mission Impossible. Him on the side of a mountain, him, doing crazy stuff. We find out he's on vacation. Apparently the IMF is keeping track of him, even though he's like, when you're on vacation, you're supposed to be away from everything. And I do like this stuff because it's exhilarating. It'd be cool if it was shot in IMAX, being similar to like the Burj Khalifa stuff. And I think it's a fun little sequence. It doesn't really serve any purpose to the movie itself, just to kind of here's where Ethan Hunt's at. He's trying to enjoy himself, but he knows it's not going to last. And when he gets to the top of the point, the Dead Horse Point or whatever it is, we get like one of the most 2000s technology where they shoot out the glasses, which look very 2000s. They have an earpiece. They of course have the video footage, and I just think it's hilarious when he throws the glasses he throws the glasses at the screen and they explode, because it's a very 2000s bombastic
Oh
intro
yeah.
to a movie. Because
But you remember it.
do you though? Do you?
I do.
It's so bad though, because it leads into I don't know if it's the Limp Bizkit theme or it's Hans Zimmer's theme, but
It's
it's
just
like
the instrumental.
well, that's my like the thing, like the opening of that stuff with like the it doesn't use like the match. It just kind of doing all this like, hey, look what we can do in CGI with the title sequence, and it's so bad. And you see like shots of eyes, and you see like the Chimera, like God or whatever. It's just like it's so ugly. It's really
Yeah.
ugly. Like it's some of the most ugly things they do in the series when it comes to title sequences and stuff like that.
Remember
But
though too, like they kind of they did the homage thing to Mission Impossible with the original, as much as they could, and and still kind of say fuck you to the original series in their own way. I joke, but They probably felt like, well, we got that out of the way. Now we can take it and make it our own because we've done the proper homage to the people that came previous.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they were trying to update it, make it more modern. I
Yeah, they
get that.
always do
It's
that.
just
That's look at how much that's done to even like, I mean, and this is not a great example, but like when they brought back Mystery Science Theater 3000, they updated, like they kept the bits and pieces of the logo or the theme, but then they added like a much more rockin' track. It had an orchestra thing going. It was a lot more, 2017 at that point. So
right.
that stuff that's
And
always gonna be.
oh, I know, but you can tell this is like early After Effects, early
Oh yeah.
Photoshop. Like you look at the logo for Mission Impossible 2, it's like they can't call it the Mission Impossible 2, they had to call it MI2, which is very 2000s in its own right. And like you look at the photoshopping that they do, and it's very of its time, and the fire flames and the hair and all that stuff. And this movie just it doesn't linger on anything, and it has the bombastic opening and all that stuff, and then it leads into like going straight into, for instance, they want him to go find someone, and that of course is a very young, she's not even 30 yet at this point, but Thandiwe Newton. She changed her name. It used to be Thandie Newton, but now it's Thandiwe Newton or Thandiwe
Oh,
Newton.
I
I think
haven't kept
it's like more
track,
in line.
so
Well, no. Thandie Newton was her name, but she's changed in the last couple of years to Thandiwe Newton or Thandiwe Newton.
okay.
And you might know her, but most people might
No,
know
I
her from like Westworld and stuff like that.
yeah.
But she is the Bond girl, the girl of the movie, the sex symbol in a lot of respects. And Thandiwe Newton is an attractive woman. She's not even 30 years old, going up against Scientologist named Tom Cruise. And a lot of this stuff is very John Woo, with like the kinetic energy of the dancers, and being, I think they're in Spain or Mexico or wherever they're at. They're in Spain, but it basically is the introduction to her being kind of a thief. She's trying to steal diamonds or whatever, and Tom Cruise comes to the fact to recruit her because they need to get to Ambrose, as we learn. And I mean, I don't know. What do you think about their introduction? It's very of its time. Like in its introduction, she's trying to steal something, and he like falls on top of her because they're trying to invade the police or invade the security.
Oh,
I don't know,
it's
Trim.
got
Help me out
serious
here.
it's got serious sexual like tension going on from moment
Yeah,
one.
and
And I think that was, you look at like Entrapment, you look at The
mm,
Saint. There's a lot of that kind of stuff at that time. Like, oh,
yeah,
something for the ladies and the gents, to kind of take a break
I think
from the
it's
hardcore stuff.
more of a masculine thing than it is a female thing. Because if you look later on in the franchise, as it goes later, and then it goes to 4, 5, 6, and 7, and so on and so forth, the ladies in that movie have a much more
But it was a time too. I think that was
yeah.
like that powerful and yet feminine kind of a thing going on. Like, she's a badass thief, but she's also feminine enough to like, I don't know. I got nothing.
I
I'm
just
just
I just think it's weird that she's someone who feels like she could be strong-willed and stuff like that, but then
oh, we
she just
never get
kind of
that
falls.
chance.
Well, no, but yeah, she just kind of falls for Ethan Hunt's character. It happens so dramatically and suddenly. It's like you watch a Bond film, and the female sex symbol or female protagonist just kind of falls for Bond, and there's like this chemistry and electricity, which I don't think Thandiwe Newton and Ethan and Tom Cruise have any chemistry in this movie.
Oh no,
I think
it's
it's
not earned at
weird.
all.
It's out of place. He's like really creepy in how he like fawns over her and chases after her. Yes, he's trying to get her to infiltrate Ambrose's character because they have a past, but it's like 10 minutes after or 5 minutes after they meet, they're in bed, they're having sex, they're now in love with one another. It's just like that's not how that works. I'm pretty sure I don't know about you, Trev, but I'm pretty sure you don't, unless you're drunk or at a bar or you've had many beers or something like that. I'm pretty sure two people don't fall in love that quickly and have sex within hours of meeting each other. I mean, I don't know. It's been
Honestly,
a while since I've seen the dating scene, but I don't know.
I think, excuse me. I think that is kind of I think that's an early 2000s thing though. Like there wasn't a lot of thought beyond the, hey, baby, you're looking good. We both find ourselves robbing this same place. I mean, what are the
Uh,
odds? It's so hard to meet someone at the bar. Let's go meet at, some place where we're gonna rob people. So I don't know. I
I
think it
mean,
was
that
a
was
thing of that time though.
yeah, I know. And you had like a year before, you had American Pie, and you had
Oh, these two are night and day. There's no
well, no,
I
no, no. What I mean
understand.
by that is you have like 10 Things I Hate About You. You have Can't Hardly Wait. The reason I say that is because they're movies about individuals who they're complete opposites, and they're able to find love quickly. And it's the same thing here. It's that time frame of what you're talking about, where it's early 2000s, and
Yeah.
it feels like they just didn't know how to put these. It's like hitting your action figures together, like a man and woman action figure, and you don't know. You know
Yeah.
what I mean. You
Yeah,
know
no,
what I'm
I
going
get it.
at.
I get it. I do think there's two other things. I think one, obviously it's implied that, you're in this highly tense situation. To diffuse that tension, I mean, what better way than to, bump uglies afterwards. But I think too, like, and it's not implied, and maybe I'm blue skying here, but I think there is that being a spy or being a thief is probably an incredibly lonely thing. So like you meet someone that does what you do and you kind of go, what the hell?
Well, no, I
Nice
get
thing.
that, and the funny part is when you get into the later films, I think the characters that Ethan Hunt dates or is attracted to, I think they're much more well written characters. I think Thandiwe Newton she's almost like a nothing burger in this movie.
Oh yeah,
She's just
total
there to
MacGuffin.
be, yeah, she's literally there to get back with her ex-boyfriend, who's very, very abusive apparently, and very rapey in his own right. And she's just there to be injected with the Chimera virus and the ticking time bomb and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think Thandiwe Newton became much more interesting as her career went on, and then when she did Westworld, I think it completely elevated who she is as an actress. And I think at the time she was probably just happy to be part of a franchise or be part of something where she could show off, have fun and make some money. I mean, imagine anybody who would take a role like this and like run with it, and then they probably look back on it and they're like, probably not the best thing I've ever done, that
Yeah.
type of thing. But
I mean, she's definitely a means to an end. She's not given
yeah.
like her personality is essentially, sexy woman thief,
Mhm.
and former girlfriend of said guy that still pines for her. Okay, we're gonna use
Yeah.
her for this, and that's kind of it.
But I just think it's funny that after all this said and done, after they had the sexy time and stuff like that, that who was it? Anthony Hopkins comes into the movie. They wanted they actually picked someone else, but they Ian
Yeah, it was,
McKellen apparently,
yeah.
apparently he was too busy doing the much more important project that was Lord of the Rings at the time.
Well, and the thing
And
was that everything ran over. So,
mhm.
both for Dougray Scott and Ian McKellen, like if they had taken those roles, they wouldn't have been able to do X-Men and Lord of the Rings because the shooting schedule went so far over for these.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Lord of the Rings was a. Are you talking about Mission Impossible had a long production
yeah,
schedule?
it had a lot of extra production crap that had to be done, so it
Oh,
didn't have
yeah,
time to.
makes sense.
They wouldn't have been. He wouldn't have been able to keep his thing.
Can you imagine a Lord of the Rings without Ian McKellen? That'd been
Oh
weird as
no,
shit.
that would have
Yeah,
been
that'd been
weird.
weird. But no, but yeah, Anthony Hopkins is brought in, and he just looks bored. He just looks like he's like, okay, where's my paycheck? Because I'm sure he was paid a lot of money to this 5-minute scene. I think he, if I remember right, and now that I think about it, because this is one of the things I completely forgot about, I think he was paid like $10 million or something for
I could
that
see that.
sequence that he films, and I think he didn't want to do it, but they were like, "We'll give you a lot of money," and he's like, "Okay, sure, what the hell, I'll do it." I was Hannibal Lecter. I'll pop up and be campy for 5 minutes, and that's this movie. There's a lot of camp in this movie, and he's like,
Was
"That's
he
what."
trying to be like, was he bored or was he trying to be like,
No, he looked
man
bored.
of
He looked
mystery?
no, he looked bored. He looked like a guy that just was like there for a paycheck. It's really noticeable because his cadence, the way he's talking, he feels like disinterested and disenfranchised, and when he delivers the line, he goes, Ethan Hunt is not mission what is that word, what was the term? It's not
Uh,
mission.
it's not
It's not
mission
mission.
difficult. It's mission
Oh yeah.
impossible.
And you can't tell me that when he read that piece of line
Oh,
that he
it's
didn't
so
look over at the
cheesy.
writer.
So
Yeah,
cheesy.
he didn't look at the writer going, what the hell are you guys doing? And just shake his head and go back to, is that all you need from me? I mean, you can only imagine when somebody comes in that's very of a type that's like Anthony Hopkins, who's very learned, he's very smart. He's a guy that, probably loves stage and screen, and he has to deliver the line. It's not mission difficult, Mr. Hunt. It's mission impossible. And he just goes, well, they just paid me $10 million. I guess, sure. What the hell? I'll go back to doing Shakespeare or something like that. And I personally, I would deliver the line. I'd be like, hell yeah, say it, mission difficult, not mission impossible, or whatever he says. And like, give me my $10 million so I can go buy a Bugatti or something like that. And I don't know. It's just like, it just makes me kind of sad for this movie because it's a movie that a lot of people had a lot of stakes put into it, and it was gonna be a big summer movie, and John Woo's brought in, he's already had a successful career as a Hollywood actor or director with The Face Off and stuff like that, and to have to deliver a line like that, Trev, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think any of us could have delivered that line as well. All that was missing was, it's not mission difficult, it's mission impossible, Mr. Hunt. And I will eat your kidney or I will eat your brains with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
And then you will give me the Kamaya virus or Kaya virus or whatever, and I will die from your kidneys of eating.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Virus. But then then basically we get, hey, look, they're reintroducing Luther Stickle into the mix, and I love Ving Rhames, and I'm glad he sticks around. And then they bring in random guy number 3.
Oh my god, it's like, okay, again. we need an Aussie. Okay, you're the Aussie.
They're like, oh, he was sitting around. He's a pilot. He probably had like a a sheep farm somewhere, and a helicopter just laying there. And they're like, hey, let's use Billy Baird as a helicopter pilot. It's the same thing that has problems with 3 when they bring in John Rhys Meyers and Maggie Q. It's so sad. I feel bad for these people. Yes, they get paid more than we get paid in our daily lives and stuff like that as actors and actresses. But these are individuals that, the guy who plays Billy Baird has literally done nothing since this movie. He's an actor that, his name's John Polson. And, you look at his career, and he did like an episode of The Walking Dead, and, he did a couple episodes of Law and Order. I'm looking, he did like Kangaroo Palace and the boys from 1998. This was the movie that it was his biggest movie. And it's the same thing with like Maggie Q and John Rhys Meyers, who are a little bit bigger actors. It never felt like they were given enough substance to characters, that they were just there to serve a purpose. You look at like Jean Reno and even Ving Rhames, it felt like they were more fleshed out. There was more to it. Yes, Jean Reno was there just to kind of fill a purpose. But when you look at Maggie Q, John Rhys Meyers, and this character here, I don't care. You could just bring in Ving Rhames. That movie would have been perfect. You didn't need this other character. Just bring in Ving Rhames. Ving Rhames knows how to fly a helicopter, and that's it. And I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, agreed.
Am I talking out my ass, Drew?
No, I think I can see what you're talking about. I would even include Thandie Newton in that. And there's always that balance of like having to fill up the background of people that, to say and do certain things. But like your Aussie guy like filled the need for like the chauffeur driver, because if you had an American like driving around the pharmaceutical corporate exec, like it would have been kind of weird. Like, it gives him a, well, why was that guy driving me around? Why is he American? He kind of filled that quota for like the dude that does all the other crap, like a Batman henchman number 2.
Right. Well, I mean, I get that, but when you have somebody like Richard Roxburgh, who you might remember from Moulin Rouge, he played.
Yeah, no, I remember.
That character is the same type of character. He doesn't ever appear again.
Gleeson? That's
No. Richard Roxburgh, the right hand man to Dougray Scott.
Oh no, I apologize. I thought you were talking about
Oh no,
the
Brendan Gleeson,
pharmaceutical.
man, that guy's a
Yeah,
legend. I love Brendan Gleeson. I think he's
yeah.
fantastic. No, what my point was, John Polson, who plays Billy Baird, is a character that if they fleshed him out and they made him more dimensional, could be a character you could see later on in the series. Maybe he'll pop in like Dead Reckoning Part 2 or something like that. He's just doing his sheep farm stuff or something like that. But you get somebody like Richard Roxburgh, who's a much more talented actor, and they give him a lot to do, even though he's the side henchman, and he never shows up because he dies. But my point is, he feels more memorable than Billy Baird's character does as a helicopter pilot, because it feels like, and this happens in Mission Impossible 3, these two characters just kind of disappear like at near the end of the movie. They become
They totally
unimportant.
do.
And I hate when they do that, because that's what I love about, from 4 to 6 on to 7, you have the character that is played by Simon Pegg, who is a very fleshed out, very dimensional character. He fills the role that, Billy Baird's character fills, or Maggie Q. You bring in like other actors like Ving Rhames, who continue to be in this franchise. But when you bring in these side characters that really feel like they've served no purpose, it doesn't add dimension to a story that is already suffering from a very lackluster script that feels like it's all over the place, when it's disjointed, when it has a villain that just feels very one note. And the only way that Dougray Scott feels a little bit dimensional is having someone like Richard Roxburgh or Brendan Gleeson to help him out, because Dougray Scott's character is so trusting. Even Richard Roxburgh's character of Hugh Stamp goes, why do you trust? Because when they recruit her and they tell her what's happening, he's like, why do you trust this woman? And it really helps that dimension of like why Dougray Scott, he's in love, he's really creepy, but he feels like she's telling the truth. And I don't know, when you bring in somebody like, the Billy Baird, or when you bring in Richard Roxburgh or whatever, it allows the character to be a little more dimensional, but Billy Baird just adds nothing. That's kind of where I was leading at, if that makes any sense.
No, I understand, and I can certainly see that. I think there's little lines that sort of help flesh out, especially Ambrose. Like he says, well, even if she's trying to pull a fast one, I'm still gonna get my rocks off with her, because hey, she was my girl back in the day, kind of a deal. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things.
I know men and women can be infatuated with somebody and be under the spell, especially if the woman's very attractive and they are pining for her or pining for him or whoever. But it just feels like, Richard Roxburgh should be like the main villain, and Dougray Scott should be the side villain. I don't know.
No, I agree. I think he wasn't as, from that perspective, he wasn't as strong as he wanted, or as he should have been. But I don't think he ever really trusted her. I think it was a case of, well, I'll keep a knife under my pillow, kind of a deal, sleep with one eye open, because, she came back at this weird time. It was weird circumstances. Yeah, I want her back, but I don't, I trust her as far as I could toss her.
Well, the funny part about this movie, it doesn't go a lot of places. It's not as globetrotting as a lot of the other movies. Like, for instance, Mission Impossible 4 goes to like many different locations. Mission Impossible 1 does. Here it's Utah and maybe Spain for a little bit, but mostly in Australia.
Yeah.
Like 90% of this movie is in Australia. And when, I don't know if you read this fact or not, but I love that the house that Ambrose lives in, it was made out of like polystyrofoam or polyurethane or whatever it was, like some.
Oh, that is cool.
Like, yeah, some cheaply built material, and then they just destroyed the house. It wasn't even like an actual house, but it's like, it's one of those very aesthetically pleasing but also modern look to a house, where it's like, the way it's built, it looks very much like something you would see in a very 2000s movie with like Swordfish, or with what's that movie, Gone in 60 Seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Where they love their angles in 2000, the angles and like the very like squared view look with the open windows. It's just of that time, and just very like, it's what represents like, people with money. And I mean, this is kind of where we really get Dougray Scott's characters, his kind of really introduction outside of the beginning of the movie, and it leads to Thandiwe Newton's character basically being as an infiltrator to get information about what this chimera thing is, and trying to get, figure out why Ambrose and what he's doing. And they go to like a track, a horse racing track, and I don't know. I mean, help me out here. Like what do you think about like all this stuff with the infiltration, the Richard
I mean,
Roxburgh
they're using her as a spy to kind of, or Hunt is using her as a spy to kind of get information.
Yeah.
To figure out what's going on. That was kind of the plan to start with. And it goes great until she screws up her left and right and puts the footage of this, devastating virus back in the wrong side of his jacket.
Right, because he trusts her. He cuts off a portion of his right hand man's nail or finger.
Yeah, finger. Yeah.
Yeah. We're introduced to Brandon Gleeson, who's the CEO of Biosite, the company that created this virus. They are basically blackmailing him to make a lot of money, which, like I said, I don't really care about the blackmail. I think it's just a
it's a MacGuffin thing. It's that background, like it's a statement on pharmaceutical companies, that big corporate stuff, oh, evil. But, it's the same then and now from that perspective. So
yeah, there's been many movies over many decades that had this storyline. It doesn't feel like anything new. Like, you look at Mission Impossible 3, as we'll talk about, it's mostly just, MacGuffin that never gets kind of explained. Mission Impossible 4 and stuff like that from the future, there's not really a MacGuffin that really has any importance, but they try to make Chimera an importance to scare 2000s audiences that, oh, there's gonna be a virus, and I don't know, maybe 20 years from now you may be stuck in your house, and we're preparing you. See, Mission Impossible was the what's that word, foreshadowing for the year 2020.
Oh, absolutely.
So Thandiwe Newton was the actual catalyst for 2020 in the virus. We'll say that.
No,
right?
agreed.
Am I right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
No, anyway, so the racetrack stuff happens, and she is able to retrieve the SD card or video card. They're able to figure out what this chimera virus is, what it does. She puts it in the wrong pocket, and he realizes what she's done, that she's betrayed him, and that his right hand man is right. How I don't know the history. Is it really fully explained, the history between Ambrose and Hunt, or is just Ambrose just the guy that has worked with Hunt before? It feels like a lesser version of like Sean Bean and Pierce Brosnan and GoldenEye, where there's a history between the two.
I obviously Ambrose knows kind of the way that Ethan Hunt works. I mean, you can see that from the way that when they go to infiltrate the lab, how he behaves and whatnot. He's like, well, he wouldn't take a straight on shot. He's gonna go take the path that's gonna take him by fewer people and all that kind of thing. I mean, it's kind of what they did at Langley, but not quite as well done, kind of.
Well, I mean, but it does say he's a rogue IMF agent, which I think that trope is a little tiresome. The rogue.
Well, they did it. They did it in the first one, but well, they also said, I don't know, just the whole way that and I know I'm going back to the open, and I apologize, but like they're like, well, we couldn't get a hold of you, so we sent him in because he's got similar facial features and he knows the ins and outs of what you do, and that just, if you trust him and he's doing that kind of stuff, how good is your info or your intel on that guy? I don't know.
I mean, well, this movie would have been. I'll say this movie would have been much better if like the bad guy was Emilio Estevez and he still has the spike sticking out of his face. I think that would have been much better.
Did you agree? Totally.
Yeah. He'd be like, I'm mad at you for allowing me to die because, the spikes came down from the top.
Yep.
And now I have a spike in my face. Now I'm a ultra bad guy because I'm mad at you, Ethan Hunt, because you didn't save me. Right. But no, once Ambrose kind of confronts her, they take her to the biosite, the location, because basically Ethan Hunt devises the Ocean's 11 of this movie where he is going to break into biosite, but as Dougray Scott does in the exposition of all exposition scenes, he's like, nope, he's not going to go from the bottom, he's going to go from the top. he's going to inject himself, like a one-man army down a shaft, and he's going to scream as he flies down, and they have 40 seconds before the no, okay. Anyways, he basically devises that he knows Ethan Hunt well enough that he knows he's going to go from the top, and he's going to do it in like the most like the hardest way possible, because Ethan Hunt can't do anything simple. And Luther Stickle's like, you're crazy. We're gonna you have 40 seconds to go down this air vent shaft and get to the location, which I don't know if you find funny or not, but I think it's funny that they have this whole entire ventilation shaft is hundreds of feet in the air. It's a ventilation shaft for one single location that's very at the very bottom of it, so there's no other floors, there's no other places. It's just that this vent, this whatever is for one single location, which is the chimera virus. It's like I that's a very spy thing to have the one location.
They over explain how the sunlight is let in during the day to allow outside light to kind of siphon down through the entire tower, so it's like environmentally friendly, and it also provides extra warmth for the viruses to grow in natural light. And it's like a huge exposition for like this little tiny detail, just because they wanted to have a gigantic atrium going all the way down this like 40-story building tower.
Right. And I just think it's funny that in every like, for instance, Ocean's 11, like we talked about, the thing they need to get to, the elevator shaft or the thing, it's like this gigantic thing that connects to the one location where the virus is. There's no other locations that are in place of it. It's just this location, big ass vent system. It makes me laugh. It's like, if you had an elevator shaft and the elevator goes to like one floor and there's no other floors it goes to, and you have to fly down that elevator shaft. It's like, I think it's a little convenient plotting to have just that one open vent.
That's this whole movie. Like, honestly,
no, I know. It makes me laugh. It's such a spy thing to have the one location just have this like ultra security system, but that vent looks like something that would infect the whole entire building when it comes to like air ventilation. And no, just for that one single location that Ethan Hunt needs to get to, and they need to open it, and they only have 40 seconds, and it's going to go down to the last minute. I've always found that stuff funny to me personally. So
yeah, well, and it's kind of it's such a trope that gets tossed around.
And going down to the wire, like, you're not, he's going to make it down there, but they do add the tension of like Luther Stickle having trouble opening the vent, and Ethan Hunt's like, you know what, I'm gonna say screw it, I'm just gonna jump, and no idea if the vent's gonna open in time. Yeah, it's like one of those, you watch those videos where they go, here's what really would happen, and he would just land on top of the on top of the vent as it's opening and like splat dead, that type of thing. Yep. But of course he makes it down the vent, and of course they have to do the thing where they're in a time crunch and they're just that one guy in the window, and Ethan Hunt has to wait for him to turn around so he can fall to the ground, but he has to wait before the guy leaves. There's only like 10 seconds. They have to unhook the rope. It has to fly hundreds of feet in the air to the helicopter, and it just makes it in time before the event closes, allowing Ethan Hunt to break into the facility. And I mean, to me, this is like the best scene in the movie, the sequence in the movie, because it's very Mission Impossible. It's as Mission Impossible as you can get, because you have the time frame, you have the many seconds, time is moving quickly, and he has to do something like destroy a virus, and you see all the technology and the little thing that cuts open the glass, which is very spy and stuff like that. And I don't know, I like this stuff because it actually feels like a Mission Impossible movie at this point.
Yeah, it feels like a lesser version of what came in the first one to me. It was fine. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it felt like they were milking it for time, honestly. But that's fine.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, that's true. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm just saying, like, when you have all the stuff that's come before it, it just feels like a 2000s action movie, and then you actually have something that has a little bit of tension to it, kind of like that sequence, like you said in the first movie. I think it's entertaining. It leads to some of the most cringy stuff where the bad guys are able, like they're talking about how hard it is to get through the bottom of, biosite, whatever. There's guards everywhere, and then they just do the Die Hard thing where they just go in, they kill all the guards, and they're able to go up the elevator. There's no real kind of there's no difficulty, and they bring Thandiwe New's character up there, and there's a big gun battle, which Ethan Hunt can apparently dual wield guns in this movie. So he has two guns, and he's like doing slow motion, shooting, and they're destroying the building. Of course, no police ever show up anywhere. There's nothing, and it's just I like the sequence of him going into the building. It's just like now John Woo's just showing off. He's just showing off of Ethan Hunt and his here's his dual wielding pistol ability, and it feels like he has an upgrade. So I don't know. What do you think?
No, it's fine. It's for all the stakes that they brought forth, and I mean, you kind of touched on it earlier about how even though there's a lot going on, it doesn't really excite you. Like it's kind of just oh, there's an explosion. I mean, I enjoyed this for what it was. It's a popcorn movie, but I never really felt the stakes. It's like, oh well, is he gonna make it through the thing? Well, yeah.
But Triv, I need more pop in my corn, Triv. I need more pop in my corn. I don't need.
Go get some butter or some Pop Rocks or something.
Yeah,
some
but if I get Pop Rocks,
then
it'll be like, I guess I don't know. Maybe I need to put some spice in my popcorn. I don't know. I need some Dune in my popcorn.
You're in Florida, so there's a good place to get some spice.
Yeah, I can get some oranges. Make my citrus flavored popcorn.
Sure.
But I mean. Can I have to honestly ask you, as somebody who calls this a popcorn film, and it very much is a popcorn film, do you feel like you have to turn your brain off watching this movie? Other Mission Impossible movies, you don't have to turn off your brain, but it's like it feels like when we dissect this movie and I start thinking about it, I feel like my brain is falling out of my head. I think it's melting. I don't know. I feel like there's an explosion, like the poster of this movie, of just my brain just disappearing.
I mean, I can appreciate especially the effects and kind of what went into this to do the stunts, and the fact that I mean, they upped their game obviously on the stunt front. They kicked ass, they took names, they did a lot of really interesting stuff that was outside the box for the time. The whole motorcycle battle thing was pretty cool. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely a case of, I mean, this isn't Jason Bourne. That is the up and down of it. This isn't Mission Impossible 1. It's certainly not Mission Impossible 3. But I mean, it's good in its own way. It definitely has a dedicated audience. I don't think it would be the second highest grossing movie of the year if it hadn't. But it very much falls more in the realm of Fast and Furious 7 than it does Mission Impossible.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it really does feel like a Mission or a Fast and Furious movie, especially one that comes out today, because it has no real identity to it that the other movies do.
It does, but it doesn't. It's like
no, it has a John Woo identity. It doesn't have a Mission Impossible identity, I guess.
Oh, agreed. Its name is Herman.
Yes, its name is Herman Hermans.
Yeah, as compared to like Blaze or Jimmy Schmitz or whatever.
Jimmy Schmitz. No, but it's like you have to have that moment where you have to have the countdown. You have to have the woman who's going to do something really insane by injecting herself with the virus.
For love. To save her boo-boo kitty fuck.
Right. Because it's part of the Click Commander.
The one time they got busy.
I do like the scene where they kidnap Brenda Gleeson's character to get the information, and we get another mask pulling off, and then the whole sequence when she thinks that she's talking to Ethan, but it's just another masked individual, and they really over, and I know what they're going for, and it's to pull everything along, but it definitely it just been there, done that, had the t-shirt, right. It's like masky. How you say moly. It's like mask.
You start ripping at his face to make sure it's actually his face.
Right. But basically, I know you like the motorcycle stuff, but this is when this movie just completely just stops being entertaining to me. Once she injects herself with the Chimera virus, cool. Let's hope for something cool at the end. But no, it's just like he runs, he says he's gonna save her, and then like, the next shot is him climbing up a side of a hill or cliff or whatever, and it's like at this point, I'm super bored by what happens here, because it's literally them in a bunker. They're blackmailing Brendan Gleeson's character for more money, more fame. We want more shares of the company, and it brings in the whole doves, because it wouldn't be a John Woo movie without doves in it. And I was like, this is like one of the most excruciating, like, what is going on type moments, where it just feels like you picked the most bland ass location to have this. I mean, you could have had this in like a cool building, you could have had this in the middle of like the Sydney Opera House, you could have had this anywhere. No, we're gonna do a military bunker with bland, tepid looking cinder, and I know they have to have a location that's secure, but I mean, why would they pick this aesthetic, Triv? Why would they pick this aesthetic as the beginnings of an action sequence, which don't feel at all interesting? Triv,
Because
help
they
me out
ran
here.
out of money. They ran out of money and they needed a generic location that they could easily claim was a bunker in Australia.
I guess. I mean, hell, they could have done this in the middle of a forest or something. Do something, because it's just like, you have your action sequence between Richard Roxburgh and Tom Cruise, and you have like what could be a fun sequence between Ethan from Lost and Dougray Scott, and it's just like, no. No, Mission Impossible, bad Mission Impossible, bad Mission Impossible. What are you
Plus,
doing?
think about the time. Like, okay, you look at like the thing that made Gone in 60 Seconds or Italian Job. They have like the races with the Mini Coopers, or all that the
Yeah.
racing around town, or any of those. That they follow that. It was about action. Like, that's John Woo.
No, I get that. I understand what you're saying. I really do. But you could literally put this in an apartment, or you could put this in a building, and it would have been much more interesting than a concrete bunker.
No,
There's
I
nothing
agree.
interesting about that.
I
I
would say
mean,
to you honestly, and I don't have any proof of this. I didn't look at the trivia, but if I had to put money on something, I'm going to say that they ran out of money, and or what they had for shots wasn't working. So they went out to the closest thing that looked like a military bunker and shot there. I guarantee you something like that happened with one of these sequences. Or they didn't
and
feel
I
it was
mean,
spicy enough, so they added that.
it's possible. I mean, it also, there's a lot of disbelief stuff going on with, like, I guess they're next to a major roadway or road fair or something like that. With the motorcycle stuff. But I don't know. It's so out of place and so weird after you had this bombastic set piece and action set piece to just do it in a bunker. It feels like, if they're running out of money, maybe they should not have John Woo or Tom Cruise producing and directing this movie, because
Yeah,
obviously they
that's
can't
easy to
handle the
say on
budget.
hindsight though, too.
Well, but I think I just think John Woo is a much more competent director than what he's showing
But again,
in this moment.
as we talked about earlier though, if you're working with Tom Cruise as his star is rising, I guarantee you that there was some, because he got locked out of the freaking editing room with Tom Cruise doing all the stuff. I mean, you can only control something that you're allowed to control to a certain extent.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's the thing though. Like, this sequence was already filmed, so I mean, the whole keeping it
But
out of
was
the.
it, or was it something that they went back and grabbed afterwards, like a reshoot type of thing? I don't
I
know.
mean,
I'm
that's
asking.
possible. Maybe it did take place in a building. I don't know. It just, I guess I'm just so used to much more interesting. Like, the end of the first movie is on a train going hundreds of miles an hour. And it's much more aesthetically pleasing than what Mission Impossible 2 gives. And even like, I hate to say it, even like the motorcycle chase sequence, it feels like a very by the numbers, paint by numbers action sequence. It doesn't feel original, it doesn't feel unique. Yes, Ethan Hunt is able to you know pull the wool over, pull the trick on Dougray Sky, who gets a motorcycle himself in their chase. But like I said, it's just they do it so much better, like in the Golden Eye, being on top of that world famous tower, the tenor ray or something like that. It just, I don't know, this bike sequence is just John Woo doing what he does in movies with like action vehicles, where you look at like the motorcycle sequence is just, it feels so Yeah, it
No,
just
I get
doesn't
it.
feel like.
I agree with you. I'm
Trev,
not.
I'm angry. I'm angry. No,
Well,
I'm not
go
really that
get
angry. I
go
just
out on a motorcycle ride. Find Dougray Scott and go duke it out with him.
I'd probably rather not because he has more money than me, so he can hire bigger goons.
Well, I mean,
Me, it's
if you're
just
that
me and
angry about it, I think you should at least go talk to him. Say, hey, what the hell, man?
you know
What
what
were you
Dougray Scott's gonna
thinking?
tell me? He's gonna tell me to fuck off. He's gonna fuck
Probably.
off. Yeah,
At
no.
least you'll have an answer then.
Yeah, I'll just tell him we'll jump motorcycles. We'll run in the sand, and I don't know. I don't find it very satisfying, the motorcycle
No,
sequence.
there's
I find
not for as actiony as it is. It definitely, but there's been a lot of, and I'm not downplaying the fact that this one lacks a lot. But there's been so many of those. Like it's one of those things where it's like those popcorn movies. They have these kinds of scenes. It's like they're like 5-year-olds. Like, oh man, and then the two motorcycles are gonna fight by like a military bunker, and there's gonna be dust everywhere, and it's gonna be awesome. And my mom gave me a cookie.
I like the cookie part. The cookie would have made this movie better. Just give Tom Cruise a cookie
would.
while he's
All right,
driving.
well, then go get yourself a cookie so you stop being mad about this scene that was done 23 years ago.
I can't be. We're talking about Mission Impossible. We're talking about.
You can.
It's supposed to be impossible.
Not to. It's not mission difficult. This movie is not mission difficult, Nick. It's Mission Impossible.
Which makes it even worse, Trev. Gosh. No, I mean, like, the sequence is not the worst thing, but it's funny to watch the motorcycles like go just like jump over each other, and then they go on the other ends like they're doing like the jousting or whatever, and then they like I said, the wire focus scenes, like when he's doing the kicks and stuff, are amazingly funny and just really cheesy. And when they do the motorcycles towards each other and they jump up and they do some kind of Matrix thing where they like run into each other and fall to the ground.
And that could have been the thing too. They might have been trying to match the Matrix for those kind of effects.
I mean, I guess I think John Woo does. He should know better. Trev, should know better.
But maybe you throw someone else in there. I mean, you throw Tom Cruise in there. You throw all this other stuff. I mean, even the best director can fall to pressure. How many great directors have done movies and they end up being crazy stupid because of factors? Whether you're talking studio involvement or an over anxious little actor of some sort. I mean, lots of stuff.
Trev, clearly you have not seen Hard Target. You need to watch Hard Target. No, not really. Please don't watch Hard Target. Don't watch Hard Target, Trev.
I'm gonna watch Hard Target.
I mean, good luck to you if you watch that movie. But
dude, have you seen half the movies that I watch? It'll be a walk in the park.
Probably. It just I don't know, Trev. I look at this movie after watching Mission Impossible, being so excited to see this movie. I actually liked this movie when I first saw it because I'm a 16-year-old kid watching this movie or whatever I am, 17-year-old kid or whatever it is. And the movies, like your view on movies or your view on anything changes over time. And now that I have been doing this review thing for 4+ years, I look at these movies, and I was talking to Rob about this when he did Jurassic Park, which hasn't premiered yet, but I talked about this with him, and look forward to that review. Your feeling on a movie and the ideas of what the movie do are completely different, completely rearranged, and completely just, you start noticing this stuff. Like if you watch Transformers or you watch the new Mission Impossible, your view of everything changes, and you become much more critical of like what they did, knowing there's nothing you can do about it. But it makes you realize that the things that are capable and what they were capable of doing feels misguided, and that's what this movie does. It feels misguided. It feels mis put together, and
it feels like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, in a lot of respects, because like I said, that the stuff at the end just feels like they just, like you said, they ran out of money. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to.
And I could be wrong on that. That is literally me just.
No. I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of times they have to be creative and like But when you look at stuff like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or any of these things, yes, they had money, but they were able to do creative stuff with the material that they're giving. But when you have like a pretty decent sequence with the whole building, and then you run into a bunker and then a your ending is a motorcycles chase sequence, and it doesn't really feel well put together, and it feels boring, and it feels like not very exciting. It's just a thing that bothers me. It just feels like it almost feels like John Woo was hamstrung by his inexperience of doing Hollywood action, because the Chinese action movies in the way their sensibilities are completely different. So that's why it makes it hard for somebody to transition. You see this all the time with horror directors from Asia, from Japan, or Korea. You look at like the Ring 2. The Ring 2 was directed by the original Ring director, Ringu, and the transition from his own country to here can always feel a little deflating in a lot of respects. And John Woo had hits with Broken Arrow and Face Off, but you can tell that he's very constricted when it comes to the Hollywood system, because it's completely different in its mentality.
Yeah.
And
but look at how many times that happens to directors even now. You get like some like up and coming indie director, and they go, oh, we're gonna put you in charge of this $190 million franchise. All right, go do your thing. Go on. We're not gonna offer you any help, support. Just go.
No, but I get that. Like it definitely happens. It's that transition, but I think John Woo was a little more capable as a director, because this is his style of film, where it's an action,
but it's also a case of strong wills. You've got, and I go back to Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise. The man clearly has a set of things that he expects. And how do you balance those two things,
Yeah, and once again, it also goes to, as we grow older and how we view things, Tom Cruise as an individual, his mentality has changed to an extent to he now is more collaborative with his director than he ever was. He may not have been as collaborative with Brian De Palma or John Woo, so there is that thing. But when he started doing the movies with Christopher McQuarrie, and he started doing films with J.J. Abrams and stuff like that, you can tell that there's kind of a settling of everything. This feels like a movie that just there was a lot of million different moving pieces, but it also feels like John Woo is just very uncomfortable directing this movie. And I don't think John Woo is a terrible director, because he's very talented. He's obviously one of the great action directors. You can just tell watching this movie that there's just a lot of things that were put onto the screen, a lot of ideas that were put up there that aren't fully realized or fully thought out. And when you do that, you get something like that, or something like an 80s action film, which just feels it is what it is. But
and the other thing is too here, like the original cut of this movie was 3.5 hours. They cut it down to pretty much exactly 2, and that a lot of the stuff,
they're like, you're not making it 3 hours.
Right, and there was probably a lot of stuff that was in that original cut that would have helped to kind of string together all the things that we saw. Maybe there would have been more moments with Tom Cruise and Thaddeus Newton. Maybe there would have been background on Tom Cruise and Ambrose, their relationship. Maybe there would have been more stuff to make it less of that. But it's also a 3.5 hour movie, and how can you justify that even as a popcorn flick? Like, people freak out now at 3.5 hour movies.
Well, no, but I was gonna say, what's funny is, at the time, and this is 100% true, the studio system, the Hollywood system, didn't believe people could sit through a 3 hour movie because of ADHD and all that stuff. They felt like they needed more screens, they needed more times with the screens to make more money.
Right.
And as we've learned, as time has gone on, not only are people okay with 3 hour movies when it comes to like Avengers Endgame, the next Mission Impossible is 2.5 hours long, Avatar is 3 hours long. This is the mentality of everything has changed. And just at the time, it was a different world, and how Hollywood viewed, and they still think we're idiots, but for the most part, because the test screenings, they don't listen to people and stuff like that. And you like, when you get like back in, this is what we talked about with Mission Impossible. I talked about with the Indiana Jones movies, Jurassic Park. I think movies that those movies are thrilling, and they're not even some of them are not even 2 hours long. But you get a movie here that's 2 hours long, and it feels like there's so much missing from it. There's so many plot holes, and that's why I feel like then and then you get the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning that's 2.5 hours long, or Spider-Man into Across Spider-Verse is 2 hours long, 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it's just a different world. It's just interesting how
always, and that's to be
along.
expected. One other thing too, and you're talking about as we age, our perceptions of things change. I think too, and we've talked about this on Twilight Zone. When you're watching a movie or a TV show or whatever, from just the perspective of enjoyment, you're looking at it through a certain set of glasses. But when you're looking at it from a critical perspective, you're going to look at it in a completely different light. That doesn't mean that you still can't enjoy it, but you've also added that level of, well, I can see this and I can see that, and holy shit, look at this plot hole, and what the hell?
Yeah.
Why is Tom Cruise wearing khakis?
Man, because
I will not get over that. Just what the fuck?
Well, but the funny part about it is, so my favorite of the entire franchise is Rogue Nation, and there's a chase sequence. See, this is what I talk about. This movie has a motorcycle sequence, but that's all the action sequence that it has when it comes to the chase sequence. In Rogue Nation, as we'll talk about and you'll learn later on, there's a chase sequence which is very much a Bourne thing, and then they do a motorcycle sequence which is very thrilling. It feels very cool with the movie. And here it's just like a concrete bunker, and then we go into a motor chase sequence, which is just like, motorcycle foo or something like that. And it's just, that's kind of where I lie with that. That's my biggest problem. And my problem lies more in just this movie's attempt to be an interesting, bombastic film than more than a Mission Impossible film, I guess is where I end up putting it.
Well, and the one thing to remember with this too, and not that helps with your thoughts on this particular movie, they did course correct for the next one.
Well, yeah, they really course.
No,
it only took 5 years, but they course corrected, definitely.
Right, but what I'm saying is that maybe they needed that slap in the face to say, okay, look, we needed to be less complex than we were with one, but we needed to have more substance over style than we had in 2. So they found a good balance, and the path was righted.
I mean, you're right. You're not wrong. They definitely settled down as they went along. They took the bombastic nature and toned it from 13,000 to 11 at least. And I think what ended up happening is the Mission Impossible movies have always been kind of out there and kind of unrealistic because of some of the things that Ethan Hunt does in the movies. I think they toned it down to a point where it feels like a much more thinking man's action film than it is here's just a bunch of crap thrown at the screen, hope you enjoy it with your popcorn. But now it's unlike Fast and the Furious, which has taken over that mantle, the Mission Impossible movies, as we'll see, takes its time and actually allows you to feel like there's a competency to the movies that even the first movie and the second movie don't have, that the later movies do. And I think that's why I appreciate Rogue Nation more than anything, because it allows these movies to have the really good action but also be competent in their filmmaking. I guess I said a lot of things, Triv.
Yes, you did. But you still didn't explain to me why Tom Cruise wore khakis. Like, could you imagine crawling around on those? They're gonna turn black. Why wouldn't you just get black pants? That's like if you're bleeding, go get the red pants.
You complain about
your pants. You wear the brown ones.
You complain about khakis,
shit his pants?
I don't know. Probably. I mean, think about the things he does in these movies. I mean, you complain about it, but then you go to a concert and you see guys wearing tight pants, or
that's different. They're not like spies out doing shit,
Yeah, but what do you expect a spy to wear? Like short shorts or something?
No, black pants.
Well, why does the spy have to wear
khakis?
Okay, so Triv, we're going to talk about this. Why is James Bond always wearing a suit?
Because that's his style. But
so maybe the khakis were his style. You think
for one movie? For one movie.
I don't know. I mean, I can't remember I can't remember part 3. I mean, maybe he wore khakis in that one. You don't know. I think he wore jeans actually.
I think he was trying to hit the slightly intellectual crowd, and it didn't work. And he's like, "Well, damn it! Now I ruined all my good khakis."
I mean, we're talking about a guy that was in 38, so I mean, he's trying to appeal to the younger audience. I mean, he hires John Woo, who is a competent, is a very well-respected director for young people, and he's like, you know what? We need khakis, Limp Bizkit, and uncomprehensible action. Yeah.
There you go. That's the answer.
Yeah. So there you go. See, I explained it. I figured it out, and we're still at a point where it's like, why is Tom Cruise wearing khakis?
I'm
Why
not
is
sure that
this
she
Tom?
got it, but that's
I
okay.
don't know. I mean, it's a choice. So there you go.
Very much a choice.
Right. So with that said, this movie made $500 million. It was very successful. It was a movie that, once again, I think they needed to put this franchise on ice for a little while Tom Cruise went crazy. As we'll
Jumping
learn,
on
as we'll see.
couches.
Well, yeah, between this movie and War of the Worlds and eventually Mission Impossible 3. Mission Impossible 3 suffered because of that whole situation. And we'll talk about that when we get to it. But Mission Impossible 2 and War of the Worlds were kind of like the downturn before with Tom Cruise when people started hating him and stuff like that. And yeah. So this movie made a lot of money, and it didn't justify the money it made, but it was, like most Hollywood action films and Hollywood popcorn films, it doesn't need to have competency to make money, as long as it has a franchise star and a franchise that people love. So look
Very
at you,
true.
Fast and Furious. So yeah. So anyways, Triv, with that said, outside of the khaki pants, do you have any closing thoughts on this film?
Avoid chimera viruses, because generally speaking, you will melt if you get it.
Yeah, you will not only melt, but you will get very, very sweaty, and you don't want to be sweaty.
I'm starting up a GoFundMe for Ving Rhames' character. Victor?
What is that?
No,
what's
his name?
Luther.
Luther? I'm starting a GoFundMe for Luther because his Versace keeps getting shit on and stuff and shot at and whatnot.
Yeah, he sure does take his time to get out of that van, man. When that van's about
you know
3
what?
seconds
He
from
does it with style.
Yeah, but his Versace jacket gets destroyed.
Yes, it does. Oh, that is one more funny thing. So, like at the very end, where like he's got the helicopter and he's got Thaddeus Newton in the helicopter, and they think that they took out Ambrose with the rock, and then Ambrose is like like pointing a gun at them, and he's like, "Ha ha! Hand over the thing, otherwise I'm going to unalive you." And then he like flips the gun out of the stand while he flips the antidote to Luther, and then he like shoots him dead, and it's like, wow, he had his foot in the sand and he knew exactly where to send that gun. I was like, wow.
I like the slow motion and going, oh, he's falling backwards, dying. I love that. Like they add that sound effect. Like there was no Wilhelm scream in this movie. I'm disappointed.
No, that's sad. Everything is better with a Wilhelm scream.
Right. So but anyways, other than that, like I said, it's the low point of the series. As we learn and as we'll see, the series just goes on a trajectory of kind of epic proportions, becomes one of the most respected action franchises in history. But right now it has to, take the training wheels off, stop dealing with chimera viruses and crappy endings of action sequences, and allow Ethan Hunt to grow as a human being with no khaki pants.
Thank God. I hope he grew out of the khaki pants.
Yeah, he grew out of the long hair. So there you go.
Yeah.
Anyways,
shower and shave for him before he goes into the next movie.
Yeah, actually took a shit. He looks like he's constipated. So, anyways, right. Anyways, with that said, they go off in the sunset. Music plays, and there you go. That's Mission Impossible 2, the second film in the franchise that spans to almost 8 to 9 films. So, Triv, we're gonna head out. We're gonna come back in a week to talk Mission Impossible 3. Yay. But as I always do, you have theater and things, and
do I?
You are trying to chimera virus your theater. So
no, I'm not. You were trying to chimera virus my theater.
I'm just trying. I'm waiting for the deed to your theater, but that's
no, absolutely not. You can't have it. Screw you. I'll give you the chimera virus if you like. I mean, that's 100% up for your grabs if you like.
I mean, that's why I'm coughing so much, because you have the chimera virus. Yeah. So anyways, you have content. Yeah, right. So you have content. Where's that content located?
You can find me on YouTube at Trivial Theater. Recently I've done a really great 80s movie called Bloodhook. My next thing that should be out by the time this drops is one called Future War. It's a collab. It's a weird ass movie. Other than that, yet to be determined. So, but definitely keep checking me out. I've got a lot of good stuff in the pipeline. So, you can also find me on Instagram and Twitter underneath the handle Trivial Theater.
Excellent. And yeah, you can find me at Movie Emporium, where I definitely don't wear khaki pants on. I may not wear pants at all. You don't know. I'm only a head. So anyways,
well, you're
yeah,
head and shoulders and sometimes hands.
Right.
And a microphone.
Shut
up. And your phones.
Right. So at this point,
or goatee? Goatee. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Goatee.
Bald head.
Yes.
At this point, I
shirt.
posted. Oh my God, Joe, stop. No. At this point, I've posted the first video of the Indiana Jones leading to Dial of Destiny. Of course, you've seen this video with leading up to Dead Reckoning Part 2. I will have shortly soon, after this post, I will have a Jurassic Park 30th anniversary review and much, much more. It's a very busy month of June and July, so look forward to that. But with that said, we're going to head out and we will be here next week to talk Mission Impossible 3. All right, guys. Peace out.